Hey, welcome back. It's March 4th, 2022. I'm Brenda Thyne, and we're here together, me and Sandy Glaze. Hey, Sandy.
Hey, Brenda, how are you doing?
Very well. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Lots of crazy stuff happening, but I'll tell you, it's exciting. It's nerve-wracking and it's exciting at the same time. So it's an interesting turn of events that have been unfolding. So we're going to have a great chat today. You know, I know we talked about the emotion of anger last week and being able to understand it's okay to feel whatever we're feeling. And, you know, we talk about discernment, and you have some great ideas of things you want to talk about today. So I don't know, where do we start? Where do you want to start?
I'm busting this whole Ukraine thing. Let's talk about that. Just busted. Okay, so where do we even start with that? Like, I just need to really talk briefly about what people aren't talking about, and that is there's something more going on, right? Like there's a deeper experience happening here. And, you know, for those of us who, as I said earlier, if you're in the know, you know, or, you know, when you know kind of thing, we know there's something beautiful unfolding. I know it sounds crazy to say that, right? Because people are threatened and they're harmed and things like that that's going down. There's so many different mixed messages and so many different stories you're going to hear. That's fine, you know, but use the discernment Sandy and I've been talking about to really feel for yourself what's real, what's not, and like look at all angles. So, you know, for instance, take into account, take some time and watch Putin's address. I watched it. I spent the hour like reading subtitles, but honestly, he's not nuts. Like this is a man who pulled the central banking system out, Russian centralized banking. And they don't like that.
He pulled out the Rothschild central bank. He put in the Russian, right? Just want to make sure that we clarify that he is not part of the cabal of the central bank. Just so we make sure that we clarify it, people understand the significance.
Absolutely. This is a man who has called the Western hemisphere out for Luciferian practices. He's not shy about saying they're all fucking Satanists. Like, honestly, I don't really care what people think about him politically. What I see is here's a man who is, you know, under attack because he's not going along with their game. He's just not.
Everybody's under attack for that.
Yeah, anytime you come up against them, they're going to try and take you out. And so that's what they're doing. And they're trying to sway the whole world against him, right? So I get that. And there's so many different angles we could go with this. But, you know, one of the things is not just the cabal and in the financial system there, but it's a major hub for trafficking. It is a huge hub for trafficking. We know that. Just look through the, you know, Google it, for God's sakes. There's tons of articles on how many people have been, you know, found, rescued, arrested, everything else because of this particular, I want to call it like, how do you, it's like a port in a way, right?
Yeah, no, I was going to say the word vortex. So what is it about the land of Ukraine when it comes to the earth energies that they have such a high, a lot of people get confused on sex energy. Sex energy is life force energy, which is chi, which is prana. It has many different names. Even Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about the sex energy, but the people, why do they want to traffic those people in particular? What is it about them? It's like the First Nations. Why are they after those people to traffic them? What is it about them? I don't want to go into that today, but I just want to plant the seed. So exactly, you're talking a port. So what is it about the Ukraine? So it's interesting because I think it was 2014, there was a child sex trafficking pornography ring, pornography ring busted in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And it was people in, I think, Australia who outed this. And it's funny because something came up last night where I was told that there's another child sex trafficking found in Canada, and it was New Zealand police who figured it out. Has anybody made the connection yet? The Canadian cops never bust their own people, like their own pedophiles. Like it's a big club and we're not in it, right? But it's interesting because in 2014, this Project Spade, Brian Way, I think was his name, was Toronto. Bill Blair was the police chief. He's now the emergency measures minister because he got into politics. But the people they were show that the child pornography they were showing was boys in the Ukraine running around naked. Hey guys, you getting off on these little boys? So when did we start asking why the Canadian politicians and the Canadian police and all these different services, you don't bust your own? I don't give a fuck what anybody does to me, to be honest with you. I've made my peace with my creator, for speaking up. I don't care what happens, but it's just interesting that Canada doesn't police their own, and they don't hide their connections to the Ukraine. Sorry, they don't, they're connected to the Ukraine. They don't advertise their connections to the Ukraine, but look at Freeland and Trudeau losing their shit right now over the Ukraine. Oh, really? You didn't talk much about the truckers and didn't care that the truckers stood up for their freedoms, whether you agree or disagree is irrelevant. Oh, but we got to stop the Ukraine because you got business interests over there, people. Like, does that make more sense? That all the people losing their shit about the Ukraine right now are either really stupid and they're just following the media, or that the corruption that's a big hub for the corruption, and you want to protect your fucked up money system. So it's really kind of funny how this is unfolding. But you're right. You showed me one thing when you said you see things, beautiful things unfolding. You're not a pie in the sky person. You see good and you see bad. I know you do, just conversations we've had, but you see beautiful things unfolding. That's a sign of your spiritual and emotional intelligence, that, yeah, there's some darkness happening, but you also see the goodness, because we have to see both if we're going to let the light outshine the darkness. You have to see those good things unfolding. Putin, anybody hates somebody that much, that they're over the target. So I quite enjoy him too. Right? He's no nonsense. He's the masculine energy that the world is hoping to restore.
Well, and he has Christian values and things like that. Like, let's talk about that. First of all, you mentioned Freeland. How interesting, because isn't she there? Isn't she?
I forgot about that.
A neo-Nazi flag. How is that there, but not there? Okay. Even Sandy. Okay, so we're just going to put her over there because her whole name, everything makes me sick. Her name is completely an oxymoron in and of itself. Never mind what her role is. Okay, that just throws me. She's so tight with the plutocrat people, Klaus Schwab, George Soros, all those guys. They just love her. She's more of an accomplice than a puppet. She's like right in there with them.
Oh, she's one of them. So it's interesting. Can you go back to her last name and show how our minds are tricked, our subconscious mind is tricked into hearing her name? That we assume that she's here to free land.
And then she consciousness about her, right? She's Christa. Bullshit. She's the Antichrist is what she is.
She's one of them. She supports them. Yeah.
Well, they have traced her family back to her grandfather was a Nazi collaborator. Like, she's going on about what? Oh my good. So anyway, but that's her. Let's talk about the money. Let's talk about Ukraine and the money. What's interesting about that is about a year or so ago, just actually 2 years now, in November, so a year and a half ago, prior to the 2020 election in the States, anyway, there was an interesting press release made by Ukraine prosecutors who were targeting Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Enough. Can we talk about this just for a second?
We can talk about it, but we have to watch what names we say, just because we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. But we know the HB word, right?
HB and his whole deal with, the gas company and all that stuff there. He is so embedded in all of that. And these these Ukrainian prosecutors called him out. And there's video footage of Biden. I'm going to just say it because it's right there on everybody's YouTube video, where he's talking about the Ukraine and how.
You mean the current president, not the son?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. He's talking how they're investigating. Well, actually, what they were talking about was he had loan guarantees, $1 billion worth of loan guarantees for the U.S. from the U.S. government. And one of the things they talked about was him basically saying, well, you got to get rid of this prosecutor or you're not getting the money. And first of all, we all know that's not allowed, right? You're not allowed to do that, because what was the prosecutor doing? He was actually investigating his son and his corporate dealings with the Ukraine, which we all know, hugely corrupt, huge corruption. So can't even, all these pieces are coming together more and more, right? Like they're all starting to fit together. And what was swept under the carpet is now resurfaced, because these same prosecutors have come back out and said that they are once again going after this guy. And this time they're bringing the prosecutor that got fired on behalf of that with them. And they have whistleblowers and everything. And all of this evidence is now coming out. And there's even recorded conversations where they're talking about the U.S. Treasury Department and insisting that they bring back the money that they stole from the Ukrainian people. Like, oh my God.
And what did they say?
No, we're not giving back any. Oh my God, you guys. It just gets so insane, right? Like you think to yourself, holy shit. Like at what point do people not go, wait a minute, this cannot
So
okay, you see this video circulating of the Ukrainian president in his getup with his cronies, who's a comedian, by the way.
did you see them playing the piano with their penises? They have whoever the Ukrainian president is, there's a piano. He was a comedian. And they show two men in, I think they're wearing suits. I could be wrong, but their trousers are down around their ankles. And all you see is the piano. And they're sitting here like this, playing the piano with their penises. Like, who knows if it's really their penises? Are they really that big that they can hit the keys? Who knows? Because sooner or later, if you got wood, I'm sure that would hurt hitting the keys that hard that many times. But my point is, these are who the leaders are.
That's absolute lunacy.
So it's the point though that we're trying to wake the people up. Like we're gonna have to start giving stupidity prizes out for people who still choose not to see. So when you talked about the money, I like how you talked about the money. So this prosecutor, let's look at people standing up and doing the right thing. Basically, they fired him. That means he could have lost his house, he could have lost his family, could have lost his financial security for doing the right thing. This is what fuels all governments, including ours in Canada, the United States. This is what has to be shown so that we understand why the whole thing has to be abolished, right? Like we could go on for days talking about this and never share the same information, but I love what you're saying because the US Treasury said, we're not paying you back. We know we stole your money, but we're not paying you back. Hey guys, it's paper. It's not real. Print the shit. It doesn't matter. Pay them back.
Oh my
It's not
God.
real.
It's just insane. And I put the video to my husband because here he is with three other guys. They're in nylons and high heels and leather.
I saw those and I wasn't sure if that was real or not, or whether that was photoshopped. So I haven't talked about it.
Apparently it's legit. The fact of the matter is, here's a comedian who apparently starred in some sort of a play or TV show about a comedian who falls into the presidency of a country. And
hey, preemptive programming.
like seriously, people, like, what? Wait a minute. A cotton screaming minute. Well, you know what that's all about. Those poor people, I'm telling you, everything, right, is coming out. So it's a wonderful time because, again, there is so much coming. Like, just like you said, we have to hold the light and we have to hold it so bright that darkness has nowhere to go but gone, right? Like nowhere to go. And one of the things we talked about briefly was this new information I kind of came into the other day, where the new perspective that I'm sort of reaching for and enjoying myself exploring is this new kind of revelation to me that this whole thing playing out is literally just a big old court case, like I talked about with you, about Lucifer claiming he's God, he needs to be God, and bam, here we are rolling this whole Law and Order shit out.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
But they're not going down without a fight because they're still trafficking children through the family court system. And I know a woman I know, and I've been, trying to help her, and trying to help these people realize the courts are so rigged. They are in place to steal children. And why are we honoring a system? So this is still happening and people are still suffering. So just because Brenda and I are laughing about this does not mean that we don't recognize the pain that's still going on. But these little fuckers need their bells rung. I don't care if they're in police services. I don't care if they're in family and children's services. I don't care if they're in the courtrooms and in the court system. You all play a role. And you know what they say? You have no business contacting me about something. If you reach out to one of them, it's inappropriate for you to contact me. No, it's inappropriate. We pay for you bitches. A lot of these are women who are in the business of stealing the children. So we're going to find this out. We're talking about who the Johns are who use the services and steal the energy of the children, but who are the ones who are orchestrating it behind the scenes. So nobody's getting a pass in this. Nobody. And we don't care if you start crying and whining and saying you didn't know. It was your job to know. And this is why I don't know if we talked, sorry, were you going to say something?
That's the point. It is your job to know. And as a person, you can put it into perspective, you know, regardless of what your job is you're doing as a job. Like, come on. I can't even. These people, it just makes
So International Association of Chiefs of Police, if I remember, I'll post it on this video. They passed and they endorsed a protocol back in 2014 that they can lock anybody up for 6 months if they're deemed to have mental health issues. But now they're coming out and saying anybody who sees the truth has mental health issues. There's a guy in Lindsay jail that they've locked up, and they're trying to say he's insane. I can't remember his doctor's name, out of the University of McMaster University. Of course, they're all tied to the universities, because he says Trudeau's a pedophile. Oh, you got mental health issues. We pay you little fuckers to sit there and put the people in jail and put them behind bars who see your corrupt ways. All this because you're whoring yourself out for a paycheck. You're a money whore. This is what is coming out. So the danger's in the middle ground too. We're going to call out the middle ground. So these women who pretend I didn't know, it's your job to know. The men who say, I didn't know, it's your job to know. And if you don't know what the real criminality is in your organization and in society in general, thank you very much for everything you've done. We no longer require your services. Let's pink slip the fucking lot of them. I got pulled over this week, and it wasn't quite, I did a rolling stop through a stop sign. I wasn't sure if I was going to go home or do something else. And where I was turning, the sun was starting to shine. And so I was reaching up for my sunglasses. So what? I did a rolling stop. Nobody was hurt. There was no cars in the intersection, but there was a cop there and pulled me over. He was so freaking angry. I look at him, and so by the time I put my car in park, roll down put my window down halfway, he's standing there. Do you know what you just did? And he starts yelling at me, and I'm like, why are you so angry? I'm not angry. I assure you, you'll know if I'm angry. And I'm like, holy fuck, this he's not losing it, but he's on the edge. And he goes, you know, you ran a stop sign back there. And I'm like, I didn't think I did. You don't know he didn't run. And he starts he's just very in my face. And I'm thinking to myself, you little prick, a week ago, I was the asshole for not wearing a mask. And now that you settled that all down and we got into the Ukraine, now you're back to the traffic infractions. So you're always at the people, always nipping at the people's heels, but never going after the real crime. Turns out by the end of all this, I'm like, I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say to you. But he was mad. And I'm looking, he's got tats on his arms. I never checked to see if the car was a ghost car, whether there was real police markings on it or whether it was just I never looked, because we have to understand that they're hiring people to impersonate police. On his way, when he was finishing up, he gives me my license back, and he goes, and he says my name. He goes, you live in, and he said my town. And he goes, it's your job to know where all the stop signs are. And I'm like, are you on, I didn't say this, but I'm thinking, are you on fucking crack? And then he tells me, and he goes, you ever tell an officer they're angry before? We will give you a ticket. Oh, so now we're at the mercy of your fucking mood? Who's got the mental illness now? So we have to understand a lot of the processes that we have in place, that we trust the plan, or not the plan, we trust that the people in charge are here for our best interests. Give me a break. So this is this Nazi's job to try to make people feel bad for what? A rolling stop? But you can't turn around and call out your prime minister who's put pedophile logos on your business statements. Get the fuck out. We don't need